Could Russell Wilson be traded? There's one clear landing spot that could reignite a franchise, writes Jason Canfora. Before we get into that, I'm Guy, that's John, and this is our YouTube channel.
Yep, subscribe to the channel, like the video, leave your comments. Podcast, we got this little thing called a podcast below in the description. Subscribe to that as well.
You know what's interesting about this article, John, is it's not, Seahawks have a problem, Russell Wilson-sided article. It's a Raiders, Mark Davis, time to make a splashy move, go big, go bold, all gas, no brakes, nuts on the table. It's a very Raiders-centered article. That's what he writes, that this would be an opportunity for the Raiders to go get Russell Wilson. What'd you make of that?
Almost like the football version of getting an exclusive deal with like Celine Dion or Garth Brooks or whatever to only play in Vegas. Like, would you equate that if you were to land Russell Wilson as the Raiders?
You mean like star power? Yeah. By the way,
I'm just saying star power, superstar power.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. Elevate the franchise. Is that what you're saying? Like, because he's a new franchise, new stadium, got to take it up a notch?
Yeah, and I mean, they haven't been winning, right? I mean, they just haven't made the playoffs under John Gruden. Really haven't been close. This year they went 8-8. It took 11 wins to get into the playoffs. And let's face it, it took them. Remember, they went for 2 in that Week 17 game against the Broncos. Like, they were not close.
Yeah.
So we can say Derek is having a good season and whatever. And I was opposed to the potential Deshaun Watson similar deal. Russell is on a completely different level as a player, as a superstar. Maybe Deshaun's headed there. It feels pretty superstar driven as well, but he has pelts on the wall. He's won a Super Bowl. He's been to another. And I just think that at the end of the day, in that division, right, you're competing with the best player in the league in Patrick Mahomes and a guy that I think has the opportunity to be like, if in 5 years, once assuming Tom leaves and Rodgers is much older, could Justin Herbert be the second best quarterback in the NFL in 3 years? I don't think that's inconceivable, right?
Right.
And this is, if Mahomes and Herbert did not exist in the division, I wonder if these articles, I'd even put much merit to it. But I think when you factor that in, and I think Herbert kind of accelerated it. Like, damn, you need is Derek, I think this is the questions they ask themselves. Is our quarterback good enough? Beside all the defense, which is terrible, and the picks, and can we just go quarterback to quarterback? And I think Derek's response and his camp response this year, I beat him once, outplayed him, and I equaled him in the game we lost. It wasn't my fault, right, that Abram blew that coverage and they had the walk-off touchdown basically to Kelsey. I think this year Derek has a good argument of like, you saw me versus these guys. I outplayed them.
Yeah, I mean, it would be the reason that I wouldn't actually hate this from a Seahawks perspective. Ultimately, I would not be in the business of trading Hall of Fame quarterbacks. But if there was more there with Seattle and they are tired of Russell or whatever, this could be pretty attractive because Derek did play well. He's
tired of them.
He's tired of them. Yeah, if they're tired of each other. We've seen some things end badly with Seattle. I mean, you think Earl, but whatever. You could get a quarterback, and you might be dealing with a franchise with Gruden who would do whatever it took to get him. So would he send you 3 1s and Derek? Would he send you 2 1s and a 2 and Derek? Whatever it would take. I don't know how you value Derek right now. Do you value him as a first-round pick or a second-round pick?
I think Derek's the first. So is Derek's the first-rounder in itself, and then 3 more?
Yeah, I mean, that would be humongous. But if you're Seattle, it would have to be humongous because I'm trading you a Hall of Fame quarterback, right? A franchise cornerstone. And that's kind of what Canfora is writing. It's interesting that he writes Mark Davis's name several times before he ever gets to John Gruden. But, this is the kind of thing that an owner probably has to be on board with. He might be on board with it if John told him it's what he wanted to do. I just keep thinking about what Jay Gruden said. Vic Tafur quoted him in The Athletic a few days ago. I never know what John's going to do. Now, Jay went on to say, Derek played well this year. I don't think he'd want to get rid of him, but who knows if there's another guy out there they really, really like. This goes back a few days to the conversation we had about, they're not trying to trade Derek unless they get Deshaun Watson. I mean, Russell would fall in that category of guys that would be an upgrade. He's an upgrade over most quarterbacks. But again, quarterback is not the Raiders' problem. That's not why they didn't win. Like, you want fans in the stadium, just win games and you'll sell the thing out. You'll be superstars. Las Vegas Knights were superstars. Why? They didn't have Wayne Gretzky. They just went to the Stanley Cup Finals and it made them a big deal in the town.
Well, that's where I think you can look at it from two standpoints. One, a football move, just big picture. If you take I wouldn't even call it the slow lane, but you just stay in the traditional lane, would be to keep building around a good offense, add to the defense, and try to win that way, and try to go from 6 wins, 7 wins, 8 to eventually 10, 11, right? And then I think you look around the league, I'd say that's been thrown out the window a little bit, right? The teams that are winning do bold shit. The Rams, I'd say Seattle historically has. Teams just roll. Pittsburgh a year ago traded a 1 for Minka. I'm talking even non-quarterbacks, let alone the quarterback movement we've seen. All these teams sniffing around all these players. I think the Bucs just won a Super Bowl. Let's face it, the Bucs have won 2 Super Bowls. One, putting their nuts on the table, trading for Gruden, which looking back is still insane. Multiple first-round picks, cash. A deal like that wouldn't even happen today. And then the Brady thing, like they just went all in on Tom Brady, that I think you just look around. Do we have to get bold to take a huge step, even if we are just – it's not an incremental gain because Russell is far superior than Derek. And Derek's a good player, but, I mean, Russell's a Hall of Famer. But, like, what happens to the rest of our team? Do we just spend on defense? Does it put a lot of pressure on Mike, who's been good in the mid-rounds, right? You could argue – because this is the pushback – on people when they trade first-round picks when they're in the 20s. Like, most people miss on those anyway. For every T.J. Watt, there's a lot of A.J. Jenkins and Marcus Smiths and Danny Watkins. So unless you're not giving up pick 3 for the guy, you're giving up picks. Even now, you're in the late teens and you think he gets you at least to the 20s. Like, fuck it. And that's where I think if it's available, I can trade Derek and whatever package of picks. To me, it's kind of like an NBA trade, trading for a Kevin Durant, a James Harden, a Steph Curry. You don't think twice. Seattle, it's one of those. There would have to be things that we don't know about, like even beside the Dan Patrick interview that we made a video on the other day. And just it already feels a little weird, but the weirdness is 10 times weirder than we actually just assume it already is weird, right?
Right.
And then you have to go, listen, we've already won a Super Bowl. Pete's rich as hell. Schneider just got a huge contract extension. Is it worth it? Is it worth it? Or is just this the time that like a little Belichickian just sell on him? Because I'd say you could have justified maybe like 10, 11. Let's just say this, selling on Brady. If Belichick had, he sold on every other player. Let's say he sold on Brady in the 11, 12, just that range. He would have regretted it forever. You know,
Yeah.
I'm not saying Russell's as good as Tom or even Peyton or some of these historic players, Rodgers. But he's the best player in the history of the franchise, and I think it's a pretty substantial margin to who would even have the argument for the number 2 guy, right? And he's just so famous because he's a quarterback. I think we've seen NBA moves like this that have just crippled franchises. And I'd be hard pressed. I don't care if I'm John Schneider and I have 5, 6, 7 years left on my contract, whatever. And the moment I got fired, someone would hire me. Do I want to be the guy that traded Russell Wilson? That's what I'd toss and turn with. Even if I was like talking about it, thinking about it. Right?
Yeah. But you never, there are things that happen internally that make you care less about what people think on the outside about was I the guy that traded Russell. I mean, he's going to be, he's 32. He turned 32 in November. So he'll be 32 when next season starts. He is very expensive. Like, do you think Russell Wilson wins another Super Bowl in Seattle?
I don't think it's inconceivable.
No, it's
make
not.
The playoffs
At a point
year.
this year, they look like they were. They could win the NFC.
The NFC championship.
I know.
Yeah.
To me, one thing they could do,
but I think Russell and I think star players, this is probably the angle that he views it as, and I think they all do. I can win it anywhere, right?
Russell.
Yeah, like I'm good enough.
Yeah.
You get me with
Absolutely.
you build it around me, I'll win it.
Look, think about the 2 guys he mentioned when he talked to Dan Patrick. He mentioned LeBron James and Tom Brady, guys who have won championships other than the places that drafted them. So he absolutely thinks that. But it does fit in some ways. Like you'd get him out of your conference, you'd certainly get him out of your division. I wonder. Here's the problem. The hang up I have on this is John Schneider doesn't. I think he'd rather have players than your first round picks, but you don't really have any.
Yeah.
So I wonder, would he? And again, I feel like I'm just just throwing stuff at a wall here. But could they trade Russell and then use picks, turn around and try and get Deshaun?
You're saying
if you're the
Seattle,
Seahawks,
right?
Yeah.
I see what you're saying.
Because I don't know at the end of the day.
And then have so many picks that you don't feel like you're losing, right? Because you have double picks.
Yeah, I just wonder, is John Schneider going to do a trade where he trades Russell for 3 ones and Derek and like sit out on the patio drinking a whiskey going, yeah, this is what I like my team to look like. He doesn't.
You just blew my mind.
He doesn't love ones.
As you think about it, it's not that crazy, is it? Because then you got double the ones,
and then you don't get killed
player.
for it either, right? For trading Russell, you
know
trade Derek to the Colts.
You get Russell. You get the 25 version of Russell. Like I think most people compare to their playing styles are very, very similar, right? They're runners, but they're not really runners. They run to throw. They're really liked. I'd even say in a weird way, it's hard. I'm not trying to diminish Russell as like a guy. He does to me feel a little cheesy. Deshaun does feel a little bit more normal. Like he's just kind of a guy's guy, like just a teammate. Where Russell, and maybe you get to the point when you become so famous, but I think Brady and Manning and Breeze, they always kind of maintain this like one of the guys, despite being clearly more famous. Russell, I think it's fair to say, doesn't feel like that all the time. And I just wonder maybe they sell if that's an option. I think you do that in a heartbeat, and then maybe you just trade. You don't even maybe Houston doesn't even want Derek, and you just trade Derek somewhere else.
Yeah, you trade him to the Colts, or the Raiders trade Derek to the Colts, and then that's one of the picks they send to Seattle. Some version of that. But again, it feels these is like you said. This is what happens in the NBA. These are not. This conversation we're having is not how the NFL usually works. But we've seen some. Yeah, we've seen some unusual things. The Goff trade is the Goff Stafford trade was unusual.
I think it started when John Gruden got back to the league with Khalil Mack.
Khalil Mack, the Amari.
Because one trade that's always happened, teams trading up to the first like 5 picks to get a quarterback or even like a great player. We've seen that. That to me was always the boldest thing. When you're sitting there and it flips, so-and-so is now on the clock. You're like, oh my God, they just came from 20 and that's crazy.
Yeah.
Now it's kind of bled into Khalil Mack, Jamal Adams, Jalen Ramsey, Matt Stafford, Jared Goff. And John Schneider's always been one of the leading cogs, like Howie, even before probably the whole decade, trading ones for players. He does have huge balls, wouldn't you say? Just his history would say that he fucking takes swings.
Yep.
And we talked about in the other video the thing with trading Russell. You're like, why did you reset your franchise? You just traded all these picks. See, they don't have picks now thinking
Adams.
About it. I guess they lose a 1 and a 2 this year, but they could recoup some picks with Derek.
They would need to use all the Raiders picks to send. They would end up with still the same amount of picks they have now with no extras.
Yeah, which I think they'd say, well, we just replace Deshaun, and Russell do a flip flop there and use Derek maybe to get another pick.
Yeah,
or you could just keep Derek, who's cheaper, and they have the Rams guys who I think it's fair to say that Derek. Remember, Kyle loved Derek coming out. Like he does fit the scheme, the nakeds and the boots and just dumping the ball off and taking the play action shots. I think Derek would be really good in the offense. If I told you Derek Carr was the Niners or Rams quarterback, we'd go, those are playoff teams, right?
Yeah. There's nothing that says Seahawks have to do all of that. They could keep the picks and do have Derek, and it might be better for Derek.
Or even use those picks to then go hunt some different players, right? Go get a tackle, go get a linebacker, right?
Yeah. Yeah. We do have to do one thing because the YouTube comments always make fun of me, definitely, because I choke every time I have to say Russell's what? Sierra. I always say Sierra. Sierra. So, Sierra.
I thought it's Ciara.
That's what I thought too. But the YouTube, I trust YouTube comments explicitly. Not explicitly.
I've been spelling weekend like a normal spelling a weekend. It's not, obviously, right?
What?
It's WEEK.
Yeah.
ND.
ND.
Takes out the so it's cool. Yeah.
We're here for sports, John. That's what we do.
Yeah. I like the weekend though.